Pound for Pound show, episode number 29. This is Phil. Joining me as always are Ben and Russ. How you guys doing?
Very good.
Great.
How are you?
Awesome. I am tremendous. We're going to recap this fight from last week, and then we're going to be the very first people on the internet to preview the upcoming pay-per-view. We're getting out ahead of things. Wanted to be a little bit ahead of the time. We might be tied up next week, or we might just be proactive. That's for us to know and you guys to not be concerned with. But without further ado, we'll chat about the return of TJ Dillashaw. A pretty exciting fight. Him and Sandhagen threw down for 5 rounds. Some controversy in the decision in some people's minds. So I'm going to throw it over to you guys. I'll have Russ go in first and then throw it over to Ben, and then I'll finish up and we'll chat a little bit about the fight, what we saw, and then the scoring and all things that fight.
I thought it was a great fight, as did everybody. I don't think you could argue like it was an incredible bantamweight fight. TJ coming off of 2.5 years layoff against like the hottest dude in the division probably was just such a tough ask of him. And then like he trashes his knee in the first round and then gets his eye destroyed in the second. So like he's working on one leg and one eye, basically like the rest of the fight. It just shows you like what a warrior that dude is. He's just unbelievable toughness from him to, work through both those things and the layoff coming off the suspension and still win the fight. I think I thought it was going to be 3-2 one way or the other. Like when they were about to read the scores, I was like, well, I don't know, who they're going to give it to, but it's not going to be a robbery either way to me. Like it was like Corey did more damage. It seemed like, well, it was for sure. He did more damage, but TJ, if you judge it by the way they score fights, he kind of won 3 rounds, like just, with like controlling him for the most part. And I think a big reason for that is because Corey, is just an aggressive dude. He's continuing to throw spinning stuff and flying knees and just stuff that, gets those crazy awesome knockouts. But I think he probably could have won that fight if he would have worked his jab and just used his range, because he was doing so good with it. But then he'd always, want to try something else. And every time he did it, TJ grabbed a hold of him. And from what I'm hearing, like his leg was trashed. So like, that's why a lot of it was like kind of like grabbing him and stalling. Whereas like if his leg wasn't trashed, he'd have been on his back like all those times, but I guess he was having very difficult time planting. So just great showing by TJ, and cannot wait for Jan to go beat Sterling, and then we get the TJ Jan fight. Like that's the absolute dream bantamweight fight. Like let's get it.
Yeah, you made a lot of good points, Russ. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I mean, we all thought, well, a lot of people thought Sandhagen would get that done because of the ring rust, 2.5 years off TJ had, and he looked amazing. I'm shocked he got the win and he looked that good. Like he had a lot of control time, fought smart. And like you said, yes, Sandhagen probably could have got it done if he just stuck to the basics, but he loves to use more energy, throw that, fancy stuff, I guess you could say. But yeah, it was a coin toss, the decision. Can't be mad either way. Both TJ showed tons of heart, and then Sandhagen showed he's in the top of that division, and just tons of skill and tons of potential. And it's just another setback for him. But yeah, you can't be mad either way. Awesome fight. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I was super entertained by the fight. It was interesting. It was one of those fights when I was watching it because, and I know we've had these discussions before, and the first fight that comes to mind was the second Max Volk fight. I remember chatting with Russ when we were waiting for the decision. I was like, well, I have it this, but I think the judges will score it this way. And that's kind of how I felt about this fight. And I agree with you guys. I think Sandhagen really did himself a disservice by backing up the entire fight. Like he was just conceding rounds on the scorecards. I really think TJ controlled a lot of the fight, and I think that's how he was able to get it done. And I think to your guys' point, if Sandhagen would have been more aggressive, and again, maybe not that he wasn't active, but that if he just threw more punches and if he moved forward some, he fought the entire fight moving backwards, and that had to weigh in the judges' minds. And I had it 3-2 Dillashaw, and I was even like, it probably could have been 4-1 Dillashaw, because you really, outside of the second round, you could have given him every round. I didn't have a problem with someone giving 4 or 5 to Sandhagen because he did land some significant strikes. But in both rounds, TJ was able to wrap him up and always moving forward, always landing shots. And I think just him being the more aggressive fighter is how he got out of there with the win. So, but Sandhagen's a young guy. He's going to be around for a while. Hopefully when he goes back and he gets to review the tape, it's something to learn from. And, I have no doubt he'll be back. And he's, being that close of a fight, he's not far from the top. He's not going to drop a ton in the rankings. I'm sure they'll give him another highly ranked fighter and he'll be right back in there pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So yeah, overall exciting, but yeah, very interesting. Like the fallout from the fight, you saw people that were just completely up in arms, and even pro fighters that just thought that Corey got absolutely robbed. Like he won all 5 rounds, and
really?
Yeah. People just could not believe that TJ got the win. And then there were people, it was very divided, and it was a lot of, people, I saw professional fighters call it a robbery. And I was like, that's a bit much. Like,
definitely not.
Yeah. If you felt like you won 3-2, like, I think that's a stretch, but I could get behind that if it would have, I wouldn't have been like, oh my God, but it was, like to call that a robbery. And if it would have been the other way, I don't think you could all call it a robbery. I would have been like, well, I felt TJ won, but it was close enough that it's hard to be that upset.
Very close.
Yeah.
Fight.
It was hard because there was really no decisive rounds. Like every round it was like, well, this could go either way. Like, I really don't know. Like they were all pretty freaking close.
I mean, I think the most decisive round would be the second round when TJ got rocked and dropped, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah, when he got
so that
caught.
would be the most decisive round, but still, yeah.
Yeah.
Very close fight. Could have gone either way.
Yeah, it was a good one, and I'm with you guys. I'm excited to see TJ get that title shot, and it's good because like they were concerned about his timetable, but it actually looks like he might need like a minor surgery on that knee, so he's going to be out a little bit anyway, so he can wait and get the winner of Jan and Aljo, which is going to be Peter Yan, barring a weird disqualification or a bolt of lightning striking him down or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to see that fight. And then maybe Sandhagen can get Aljo again and try to get revenge for that 40-second, which Ben, I believe, called a fluke. So
pretty
it
fluky.
was fluky. Yep,
Yeah,
I agree. Run that one back.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good move, but he might want to fight before that because, that fight is until October. So if he waits, it'll be next year before he gets that fight. So they might match him. Is there anyone out there you guys want to see him fight in the meantime?
I was thinking the winner of Aldo and Munoz.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, that's a great fight. And if Aldo wins, you know what Sandhagen likes to do to legends. So
yeah.
Don't even talk like that. Jose is going to take him out.
Dangerous. I agree.
I always get behind the legends. I think that would be a good one. And I know that there was some talk of possibly matching him up with Rob Font, which would be a really good matchup as well. So
that would be a good one. Yeah,
that would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, less controversy than I thought. I thought you guys might be a little more fired up about that decision, but you guys were.
I was not going to be mad if TJ got it. You know what I mean? If he got beat for 5 rounds, I wasn't going to be mad if they gave him the decision. I was rooting for him. And I was amazed. I've never seen anybody come back from like that sort of suspension and like that long off and fight a killer and win. Like I can't think of it ever happening.
Dominic Cruz, he would be the only other one.
Yeah.
Back, and I don't think it was as tough of a fight, but he looked like he missed no time. So like I said, and I'm not a big Dominic Cruz fan, but you got to give credit where credit's due.
Mm-hmm.
Like he looked fantastic when he came back as well. Bring him out of retirement. Let TJ beat him up too. So
there we go.
Let's get that dude out of here. So. But yeah, so let's talk about this upcoming pay-per-view. We'll get into that. So, 2 title fights and 3 really exciting fights. You guys touched on the first one, so I guess we'll get right into that. Jose Aldo and Pedro Munoz. Ben, you can go first and then throw it over to Russ. What do you guys think we're going to see in that fight, and what do you want to see?
Both, I didn't research much for this card, but both have won their last fight, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you got Jose, who's a legend, who's been in the game for a decade plus at the top level. And then you got Munoz, he's pretty consistent, but he always has one fight where he gets to that top level and just blows it somehow. You know what I mean? But this is his big shot against Aldo. I don't really know how this one goes. I'm impressed with Aldo lately, that he can still perform at that level, even though he's just been in the game and has a lot of miles on him. And then who did Munoz fight last? Who was that?
Jimmy Rivera.
Jimmy Rivera. That's right. That was a good fight and a good win. Yeah. I'm going to go with Aldo just because I love him. He's a legend and he's one of my favorites ever. I think he'll get the finish actually. So I'm going to go with Aldo. What do you think, Russ?
I agree with you on the Aldo getting the win. I think he's just a little bit better, and he's still only 34 despite being a legend and being in the game for like ever. But I think it's going to go to decision just because it's 3 rounds, and it seems like both those guys go to decision a lot. So yeah. I think lately, Aldo will just. I'm hoping Aldo implements the leg kicks again, even though he doesn't do that very often anymore. But hopefully he can just pick him apart and win. 3 rounds. I hope so. That's the big hope. He looked really good against Cheeto last time out. He
really did.
Looked real good. And Munoz looked good against Rivera, but he didn't look like mind blowing. I just think Aldo at bantamweight is very dangerous still. I think he'll get the win.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. I just think Aldo is just, like a step above where Munoz is. And no disrespect to Munoz. He's a sweet fighter, but Aldo is so technical. I agree with Russ. I wish he'd worked the leg kicks in a little more. He's kind of almost become like a glorified boxer. He's like a bantamweight Hendo at this point.
He loves that boxing, man.
He does, but
loves the body shots.
Yeah, he does. He does some damage, man. He messed Jeremy Stevens up.
Oh, that was awesome.
So yeah, I
love that fight.
Yeah, I see him just being a little bit more technical. And like I said, I think, the only times that we've seen him really get in trouble is in those later rounds. So I think it being a 3-round fight definitely is good for him and his gas tank. And, I think he can go out there and he can pour it on. And I think he'll, I want to say he's going to stop him, but I kind of am on the side of Russ. Neither one of these guys gets a ton of stoppages. So he's probably going to, it's going to be a 29-28 type of decision type of night. So
I hope we're all right that Aldo gets that win, man.
I hope it's like an old school WC Aldo and we get like a highlight reel flying knee KO or something.
Oh, flying double knee.
Yeah. Poor Cub Swanson still has problems from that.
The bantamweight division's on fire right now. That's what's cool. Like it really is hot right now.
Yeah,
solid.
It's stacked at this point. So yeah, there's a lot of good guys in that division. So, but what is intriguing, and it'll be very interesting. I'll be curious to see what you guys have to say is the main event for, as we've all talked about, in unexplainable reason, we have an interim heavyweight title fight. We got Cyril Gane fighting Derek Lewis. And so I'm going to throw it to you guys first, get some thoughts and get some picks, and then we'll go from there. So Ben, you lay it on us. What do you got?
What's going to happen again is we're all going to pick against Derek Lewis again. He's going to knock him out again. That's just what happens. He knocks everybody out when we don't expect it. Gane has looked pretty much like he's got no weaknesses as of what we've seen so far. He's been looked pretty much flawless. In that Volkov fight, he stood up and he stood up for most of that fight, I believe. And and then he wrestled when he needed to, but he's so well-rounded. And he's not like these other heavyweights who just comes out there and just relies on his fists and looks for that knockout. He's very tactical, very precise, very calculated. He's just the smartest heavyweight in the division, I believe. And I think he's got gold in the future. But there is Derek Lewis, on the other hand, who's always got that one punch, and he's arguably got the heaviest fists in the UFC. Got the most knockouts in the division's history, I believe, or tied. And it's going to be
tied for most in UFC history, not just the division.
Oh, in UFC history. Wow.
Knockouts in UFC history.
That's crazy. But what's crazy is that Gane is a minus 300, something along those lines.
I believe that's what he is.
That is insane because Derek Lewis has looked really good for the last couple years and beaten everybody. And I'm going with Gane. I think he's just a better fighter all around. I think if he can avoid Lewis's the heavy punches, if he can avoid those, he can get the decision and maybe even get the finish in the later rounds when Lewis gasses out, because Gane's gas tank's pretty solid as well. So I'm going to go with Gane. I think it goes to decision, but there's always that one punch Derek Lewis can land. So what do you think, Russ?
I really hope you're wrong that it's going to go to decision, because if it does, it's going to be incredibly boring. I think there's only 2 ways it goes. I think it's a boring fight where, Derek Lewis gasses pretty hard late and Gon just works his, jab, and like he's been point fighting very much his last couple fights. They have not been exciting at all. And he's super good, but he's just not the most exciting dude. And I don't think he's winning the gold as long as Ngannou has it. I think Ngannou will flatline him. He's just the most dangerous man.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but how the heavyweight gold goes in the heavyweight division. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Flip flops.
It does. It's just a strange fight to call. I mean, Derek Lewis, I thought, was getting the title shot, against Ngannou when Jones refused the fight, and now he's doing this interim fight. It's just a strange fight, but I'm calling for Derek Lewis to break the record. He's gonna get his 13th knockout and knockout Gon, and I'll say the third round.
Wow.
He's gonna catch him with some wild haymaker and win in front of the hometown crowd in Houston.
That'd be nuts.
You finally flip-flopped. You're finally putting money on Derek Lewis.
This is going to be the one where Gane wins. That's so funny.
Yep.
This is the Seahawks all over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you guys both make valid points. And again, I was going to say, half jokingly, but half seriously, if there's anyone on the planet that's lost as much money betting against Derek Lewis as Russ, it's me. Every single time I'm like, there's no way he does it again. There's no way he does it again. And then he does. So it's really hard to be surprised. But I don't want to be boring in my recap, but it goes one of two ways. Gon keeps him at a distance and jabs him up and beats him in a boring decision, or Derek Lewis lands a haymaker. There is no other possibility that could happen. Like, it's one of those two things. I think Gane will get it done. Maybe just because I'm so committed to betting against Derek Lewis, I'm going to bet against him every fight the rest of his career. I don't care who he fights. On principle at this point, I'm betting against him. So, but I just think Gon has played it so safe. I don't know if Volkov couldn't get his hands on him. It's going to be hard for Derek Lewis to get his hands on him. So, but I've obviously been wrong.
We always think that, and then he does some wild crap and catches somebody. It's so strange how he does it, but I think in his hometown, man, he's going to be inspired.
There's something.
You might be right.
Yeah.
It would be a sight to see because just to see the fans haven't been back that long and they've been reacting huge to everything. So I'm sure that place, they'll blow the roof off that place if Derek Lewis wins, and freaking Popeye's chicken will be flowing like
yeah. Popeye's flying in the air in the crowd.
Yeah, it's wild. So we'll have to see. I'm usually not a fan, but if he gets the win, I'm sure his post-fight interview will be something else.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it goes one of two ways. It's incredibly exciting knockout, or we're going to see a boring decision. I think. I don't think Gane is going to knock him out. Maybe he could take him down and submit him. He's got some submissions, but Derek Lewis just seems to be tough to submit. He doesn't get submitted much.
True. Very true.
So it's tough.
And it'll be real interesting to see what they do with the winner, because allegedly Ngannou is going to be ready to go fairly soon. Because he said he'd be ready in September. So, how quick of a turnaround, because I can't see any scenario where this dude, the winner, doesn't fight Francis.
Yeah.
No, that's happening.
That's the only fight that makes sense.
Get it in there. I can't wait to see Francis back in the cage.
By the end of the year, that fight will happen. And then next year, you got Jones coming to fight the winner of that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
He only needs 3 more years for his heavyweight gain, he's going to be 40 years old by the time he's all right, I've put on the weight now, finally.
The right way. It took me 6 years, but
we'll see. And I don't want to make the show run too long, but if we're talking about the heavyweight division, I just saw, and I'm sure you guys saw, Stipe, I guess, is super upset.
Yeah.
That he's not getting an immediate rematch after all the records he set and everything, and possibly talked about retiring or leaving the UFC and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next with Stipe as well, because to find a fight that makes sense for him is going to be tough, because if you're not giving him a title fight, what makes sense for him at this point?
Jones, that fight makes sense.
Well, again, you got to convince John Jones that makes sense, because I don't think Jones is fighting anyone if it's not for a belt.
Yeah,
especially someone
if it's not for a belt or $50 million,
exactly.
Yeah. And I don't care who you are. Stipe is incredibly dangerous. He's not I could see Jones maybe taking one warm up fight if he thought it was an absolute pushover, and he's I'll go in there and get a win at heavyweight and get people all hyped up with me again. But Stipe is no pushover to anybody. So,
in Jones' eyes, he might be. Most people are in Jones' eyes.
Seemed like Jones was ready to go at heavyweight when Stipe was champion, and everything broke down. Communication broke down as soon as Ngannou won that belt. It was like, oh, you got to pay me now. Like,
yeah.
what changed? So maybe he will take the Stipe fight.
I think you're possibly a little bit too big of a fan of Francis there.
Maybe that sounds like a conspiracy theorist, but like, did that not happen? Like, was he not ready to make his heavyweight debut?
There's some truth to that.
Like that night when Ngannou won, he's like, pay me. Like,
was he really ready? Like, would we be going through the same thing? Because again, I question how much John really wants to go to heavyweight anyway.
I don't know. I can never give him, the benefit of the doubt. So I don't know what's going through his brain.
Not even the benefit of the doubt, just trying to understand what goes on in that dude's mind.
Yeah,
I have no idea. Like, I can't say, like, I find it hard to believe that he's afraid to fight anybody. But at the same time, like, if I was going to be afraid to fight someone, it might be Francis.
Sure.
I wouldn't be real excited to get in the cage with that guy.
Yeah. Nobody is.
That's the scariest dude in the company.
Yeah. He's
maybe on the planet. Yeah.
He's a killer. No doubt about it. So, but yeah, it'll be curious to see what comes next. So, but with that being said, Russ, why don't you throw some bets and get the people some money?
Okay, I got some dogs for us this week. Last week, 0-1, lost on Miranda Maverick against Macy. It was a bad decision.
That's what I heard.
I mean, it was 2-1 for sure. It was decisive rounds, but the judges were goofy all night. They were doing some weird stuff all night. So when they read it off, I was like, yeah, it makes sense because they're weird.
That's messed up
tonight. But lost that one. For UFC 265. I'm taking Aldo minus 145 versus Munoz. Just a better fighter and a legend, and I really want him to win. So,
yep.
Taking Derek Lewis plus 260 against Gane. I'm going to see what the knockout prop is because I don't think he's going to win a decision. So I might even get better odds on a knockout prop. But
I would
either way,
you have to get better odds, and I would think it only makes sense to do it that way.
Yeah, I just don't know how much better it'll be, but yeah, it'll be probably plus 320, something like that.
If it's any better, who cares? There's literally no other scenario.
Yep. And then I'm taking Michael Chiesa plus 125 against Vicente Luque. That's on 265 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Chiesa he seems so big at welterweight. Like he's just bigger than everybody. And I just think he's fighting very smartly. He's won 4 in a row now, and he just is manhandling dudes with his size.
He sucks though.
He just looks like a middleweight though, a welterweight. Like he just grabs people and just manhandles him. He's gotten real strong and technical.
And that is a good matchup for him. I mean, Luque doesn't have much wrestling. He's pretty much a pure stand-up guy.
Right.
And
he's the dog. So
that's great.
Give it a whirl. And then I don't have a line on it because we're doing this so early, but Aldo Munoz to go the distance. I'm not sure what the line's going to be, but I'm going to bet it no matter, as long as it's like minus 200 or better, because I really think it's going the distance. Aldo does not fight many fights that aren't main events anymore. And even in 5-round fights, he goes to decision all the time. So it's probably going decision.
Okay. I like those bets. I like them all, but the Derek Lewis one.
Well,
at those odds, you can't can't.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're that big in the Gane, you just don't even bet that fight because it's just, that the risk is, especially with, like we talked about Derek Lewis's power, you don't risk 3-1, a crappy payout against Derek Lewis. That makes no sense.
True. Very true. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it, boys. Like I said, unless there's anything else you guys wanted to cover, we'll let the people get back to it. That's what you guys have to be excited about this pay-per-view. So we'll be back soon to recap the fights. And until then, you guys have a good summer. We'll see you guys soon.